Hey guys, many of you already saw this illustration I made of Luffy and Zoro. So in this video, I'm gonna go into detail on how I achieved this soft and dreamy art style. I created this dreamy color palette, taking into consideration tones that can be used for skin and hair. These are all very light, soft colors that can help you create very cute and simple artworks while still looking stunning. I added the hex color codes on this image in case you use another software that is not PROCREATE. But if you do use PROCREATE, you can actually download the palette file found on the description box below. I also included in the palette a dark brown color that I like to use to create the line art, so that you don't use black. I recreated this drawing from the new One Piece anime intro, focusing only on Luffy and Zoro. I am using a brush that I purchased from Eunicify, which I will also link below, but you can find similar brushes on the sketching tab in the brush library. The reason why I'm using this is to create a very soft, chalky texture as opposed to a bold line work. The benefits of this art style is that it saves you a lot of time because you are not focusing on doing like very thin and perfect strokes because the coloring is gonna be flat overall. Not only that, but lately I've noticed that minimal shading styles have become more popular, so it's a simple way to stay in trend. It works great if you're aiming to draw simple and cute scenes, or for comic strips, or even designing stickers. Of course, I will keep doing my detail and super render drawings, but I sometimes like to just get lost in this cute style and create more simple drawings. Surprisingly and somewhat frustratingly, these artworks get more engagement than those that took me around 6 hours to complete. It's ironic, but like I said, this simple art style is what's popular now. Now time to put that palette to use. I will use a bold brush to fill in faster, starting with the skin. It looks a bit dull and closer to the gray area of the wheel, as opposed to the most saturated parts. But this is what we need if you want that soft and dreamy aesthetic. Simply avoid going into the right side of the color disc, where the more saturated colors are. To shade, I will use another brush I purchased from JingSketch, also linked below. But it is simply another bold brush that you can also find in the painting tab on the brush library. I am using a darker shade from the palette for this, and it creates an interesting contrast. It may seem like a very pink color, but against the dull skin base, it makes up for the good shading color to keep everything soft. The best part is that's the only shade we will be using, so no need to swap color after color to create a deeper shade. That is why it is crucial that during the liner process, you make sure to mix around thin and thick strokes to create depth within the drawing itself, as opposed to a plain uniform line art. I explained this technique in detail in my liner video tutorial, so feel free to check that one after this. We will obviously use white for the eyes and teeth, which are not included in the color palette of course, because I just felt like it was unnecessary to add them. However, for shading, we will use the blue and purple blue tones. Notice that I am mixing the bold brush and a soft airbrush to make things appear softer. The whole point is to make the overall drawing look as simple as possible. So adding a little bit of airbrush makes the shading less harsh and a lot softer. It was complicated to add every single color with its corresponding shade, otherwise it would have been a massive color palette. For example, I only included one tone of red, but not its respective shading. But that's where you can get creative and simply drag slightly down the base color to create a new shadow. Just do not go too far down or too far right, since we want to make sure the shadow is very slight and not too contrasty. You can apply these for any of the other colors found in the palette. Now, I did not include a yellow tone on the palette, but if you grab any color, say for example the red color, just drag it to the yellow section on the rainbow bar without moving the pinpoint where the saturation is. That way, you stay within the plane of color vibrance and saturation as the rest of the palette. Then for shading, there's another trick you can do. If you are uncertain of how strong the shading is going to be, you could shade using the soft light blending mode. This blending mode only adds a slight tint of color overlay on your base coloring. So you could even go for a darker tone of yellow, and this blending mode will ensure the shading is very subtle and stays within the saturation rules as a dreamy palette. I continued coloring other elements of the robe using the wide variety of blue tones that are found in the palette. Blues and purples are the main colors you want on dreamy art, since they are soft and subtle and not too aggressive like orange or red. Luffy is usually saturated with red and yellow, so toning down with these blue elements will help match with Zoro better and make the overall drawing match. Now moving over to Zoro, I did the same as with Luffy's skin and eyes. For Zoro's hair, there's this mint green color that will work perfect for the base, as opposed to a very vibrant lime color. I always like coloring Zoro's hair with the green base and shading, and then top it with a more teal blue shading so that it looks more dreamy. We'll use the same golden yellow tone we created for the straw hat to color the gold details on Zoro's swords. Now we can use our reds and purples to finish coloring the sword details. You can get creative and mix and match colors from the palette to make it more colorful. Now we have the perfect blue tones to color Zoro's robe, creating a nice and subtle contrast between the red tones from Luffy's robe and the blue tones from Zoro's robe. Very opposite colors, yet coming together nicely due to the low saturation of the color palette. And that's the whole point, making everything look as it belongs. There are no harsh shadows or lights that don't belong with the overall coloring if you stick to this soft palette. For the background, I want to keep it super simple. In the reference, they're surrounded by trees, so I want to keep that same vibe, but a little brighter. I will not be casting harsh shadows from the trees and the sun over them, since it would defeat the purpose of it being a simple and soft drawing. So just creating multiple blotches in different green tones on the background will make the tree effect. It's always a good idea to use Gaussian blur backgrounds if you don't want that to be the main focus. Therefore, you can be a lot messier with background strokes since there won't be too many details once blurred out. This extra step is something that I've been enjoying a lot, and it's adding a white frame on the background, but keeping the characters in front of it. It adds a nice and modern aesthetic to the background and overall drawing. The final touch-ups, and it's also something that you will see very often in other artists' works, is that grainy effect on their drawings. It's super simple to achieve. You just need to apply the noise adjustment on your layers of choice and adjust the percentage depending on how grainy or soft you want it to be. It's also super important to move the octaves option to the max. This makes the number of grains or pixels decrease, so that it does not look very pixelated and saturated, but instead it creates a soft and subtle grainy effect. This makes it match better to our chalky line art instead of having a smooth base color. So this is a final result, very quick and simple, yet it creates a beautiful artwork that looks amazing as a print. And speaking of, you may get this as a print, and also as a sticker if you want to decorate your notebooks, tablets, laptops, or even your Tumblr. Make sure to check out the variety of prints and stickers on my shop. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you found this tutorial helpful. I'll see you on the next one.